Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Seeds and Weeds podcast, brought to you by Small House Farm. If you're looking to celebrate plants and the people that love them, then this is the podcast for you. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Bevan Cohen. Hello again, my friends, and welcome back to the podcast. Now, I know I say this every episode, but we have got a super fun show for you today. We're going to be hanging out with farmer and musician Del Barber. Del lives on a small 80-acre homestead in Manitoba, Canada, and he works at the family cattle farm down the way. He's also a very talented musician, and he recently released his latest album, Almanac, from Acclaim Records. We're going to be talking with Del about how songwriting is like storytelling, how he's able to balance his farm life with life on the road as a touring musician, and we're going to get to hear some songs from the new album. So we kind of have a musical episode for you today. Speaking of music, I don't know if you've noticed, but at the end of every episode of the Seeds and Weeds podcast, we end the show with a different song. So I don't know how many people are listening all the way to the end of each episode, but if you do, you are treated to a bit of a reward, if you will, with a new song each time. I had mentioned in the last episode of the podcast that we were headed down to Lawrence, Kansas for the Mother Earth News Fair, and I gotta tell you, man, we had a blast. And that fair was so much fun, even if it gets a little windy down in Kansas. We got to see some old friends, and we met so many groovy people. We even ran into Zach Lokes, whom you might remember from when he was just on the show. But I think my favorite part of the fair was the seed swap. I got to spend some time telling stories with the one and only Ira Wallace, and we gave away so many seeds. It was awesome. We're going to be hosting another seed swap just like it at the Pennsylvania Fair in July. So you should try to get this event onto your calendar. It's totally worth the drive. I'm going to put the link down in the show notes so you can learn more about the Mother Earth News Fair if you're interested. Now, I got to tell you, we took a pretty big risk at the fair this time around. I was scheduled to give a talk about small-scale seed and nut oil pressing. It's a presentation I do that kind of goes hand in hand with my book, The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils. Anyways, we thought it might be a good idea to bring some actual oil presses with us to the fair to offer them, for sale at our booth, so folks can learn about the benefits of pressing their own oils for my presentation, and then they might be inspired to buy the machine and give it a go at home. It was a bit of an upfront investment to get all these presses down to the fair, but we thought, better give it a try, and thankfully it paid off. We were offering them as a bundle, so you could buy the oil press, and it came with a copy of my book. The book will show you how to run the machine, but it's also got info on dozens of seed and nut oil crops. We actually sold out of presses at the fair, so the reward was definitely worth the risk for sure. So we decided we're going to also offer the same bundle on our website now. So you can visit our website, smallhousefarm.com, if you're interested in learning more about home-scale seed and nut oil production, and you could get Pitaba hand-turned oil press, as well as a copy of my book, The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils. I'll put all those links down in the show notes too. But really, guys, the reason that I wanted to talk about the fair was I wanted to talk about the drive down there. So from Michigan to Kansas, it's about a 12-hour drive. And as we were making our way south through Michigan and down into Indiana, all the trees were starting to leaf out. You could start to see more signs of spring and that sort of thing. And by the time we hit Illinois, the red buds were in bloom everywhere. And I go crazy about the red buds. I absolutely love them. So I was getting pretty stoked about the idea of getting to Kansas and being able to harvest red bud flowers when I got there. But unfortunately, when we got to Kansas, the season had already passed. All the flowers were gone. So up here in Michigan, no flowers yet. Get down to Kansas, flowers are already over with. So I completely missed it. Thankfully, by the time we got back to Michigan, the red buds were starting to bloom. And right now, as we're recording this, the red buds are in peak bloom. Super cool, right? Well, what the trip got me thinking about was, it's just such a short window of time that we get to enjoy some of these things. And I know that we're all very busy. Especially as spring's winding up and summer's on its way, there's a lot happening. But I think it's so important that we just kind of try to set some time aside to really enjoy these moments, these little things that each season has to offer us that are so unique and so short-lived that if we're so busy, we're going to miss all of these special things, all these special moments. And I just think it's really a shame, and it just got me thinking about that. One of the things that we do here at Small House that keeps me kind of mindful of that are these seasonal gift baskets that we put together for our Patreon supporters, right? So we gather up all these particular teas and tinctures, these limited edition salves, whatever it might be, all these groovy Small House products. We gather them together. It helps me really be mindful of the offerings that each season has, and to curate these little collections and then send them off to our Patreon supporters. And it's such a fun thing to do. And then these folks that are getting these baskets, not only are they getting a fun basket of awesomeness, but being a Patreon supporter, they also get this exclusive content and seeds from our garden and all these other cool rewards. Plus, they're supporting our podcast. And I'm going to say it again, folks, we cannot continue to make this show without your support, right? So if you'd like to enjoy all these seasonal offerings and help us keep this show on the air, please check out our Patreon. You can find it at seedsandweedspodcast.com or directly at patreon.com/smallhousefarm. And of course, like all the other links, this is going to be down in the show notes, so you can browse through there and find links to everything that we're talking about in the show. And to those of you that have already subscribed, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you. All right, let's get on to that interview. Del Barber is a farmer, a family man, and an accomplished singer-songwriter from Manitoba, Canada. His music has been nominated for countless awards, and he's received critical acclaim from Rolling Stone magazine. Today, Del is joining us on the podcast to talk about storytelling, his farm life, and Almanac, his latest release from Acclaim Records. Del Barber, welcome to the podcast, man. We are super excited to have you with us here today.
It is my pleasure to be here. Honestly, I love talking about this stuff. This is great.
Now, to get us started, you're a touring musician, but you also own and operate a pretty good-sized farm up there in Manitoba, Canada. Can you tell us a little bit about your farm life and what you have growing?
Okay, so our farm, where we bought, it's not that big, especially compared to farms around here. We only own about 80 acres, but I also work with my in-laws on a farm that has over 3,000 acres, mixed farm, cattle and grain. And so we are absolutely as busy as it gets. I could be working here at home for every hour of the day and not get enough done. And then I also add on the life of a touring musician onto that, and also trying to raise a couple of little kids. So it's a really busy life, but we wouldn't have it any other way. We love it up here. My wife and I do some chickens for meat. We do about 1,000 chickens a year, and then we also have a very large garden that's expanding every year. And I don't know how much more it's going to expand before I lose my mind. But it's a pretty fantastic garden, and it's really coming a long way. And we're doing a whole pile of different stuff, and some of it's turning into side hustles. Like we're doing cut flowers, and then I've been doing hardneck garlic pretty successfully for the past 4 years now, and then bringing it to market and selling it a little bit too. So it's really fun.
Okay, so you're a super busy guy. You got the big farm, you're a touring musician, you got this new album that just came out. How do you balance all of this? These like what seems to be two seemingly very different lifestyles. How do you find balance in all that?
I guess I've sort of embraced it as the thing that feeds itself. I'm a songwriter, and I want to write songs about meaningful things. And if I just spend my time around other musicians, I feel like I don't have anything to write about. And so life on the farm really gives me some perspective, and I get to meet so many interesting characters that inspire me to write songs about them. And I really feel like my farm life is symbiotic with my musician life. Now, I mean, sometimes obviously that balance falls apart in really terrible ways. You know, when I leave, I'm on tour now for like a month, and I'm missing like most of the planting season, or at least gearing up for it. It can be pretty stressful to just leave for months on end, and so that balance can get really rank sometimes. But you know, theoretically, I love both lives so much, and I would get really bored with either if that's the only thing I did. So I'm trying to keep both of these lives alive as well as I can. I
dig it, man. So what would you describe the genre of music that you play? Is it country or folk, Americana?
I guess that's what it's called now. It's Americana, and it's sort of like a catch-all for people who don't have a genre. Like I don't have a voice for pop country radio, and I don't really write songs that would make sense on the radio there anyway. And so I think people call it folk music sometimes. In Canada, like it's called roots music, which suits me because I am a farmer and I like things with roots, and I like things that have a story and that go deeper. And so I like the term roots music a lot, but I'm honestly happy to be called anything. When people hear it and they hear country, I'm happy with that, and folk, happy with that too. I don't really mind being labeled in any way, and I know a lot of artists get picky about that, but I'm just happy, anyone calls me anything at all. So.
Well, right, as long as they enjoy the music, who cares how they label it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the new album, it just came out April 28th. It's called Almanac, and one of the singles is the song that's titled Still Got You. And I gotta tell you, man, I love the opening guitar riff on this tune. It is super catchy.
I turned the yard light off so I could wonder at the stars. The weather woman says look out for Jupiter and Mars. Hoping we got this corner turned. All the best things we have, we just didn't earn.
Now, lyrically, though, it seems to be kind of telling a pretty interesting story. Would you care to dig into that song a little bit and tell us what it's about?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this type of question. I don't write a lot from my own perspective, and I only usually give myself a couple songs on every record to sort of say what I want to say through my own voice. Usually I use characters, but this is one of those songs where I just decide I'm going to talk about the things that are happening in my life right now, and try to just insert a little bit of my own personality into this record so people know exactly where I'm coming from, and it gives them a great context for how I think about characters too. So that's how the song starts. It's just like an immediate feeling of gratefulness for what I have and where I live and the life that we're making here. But with that gratefulness for me comes a sense of guilt, and I don't mind having a little bit of guilt in my life, because I know so many people are struggling. I wrote the song during Black Lives Matter protests, and a lot of my friends were rallying in the streets while I was just sitting at home on my farm pruning tomatoes and just living my life gratefully. And I felt like sort of a sense of guilt about really all the stuff that we're able to have here, and I really want to celebrate living rurally and sort of promote that sort of grateful sense in my music.
Oh, I dig it, man. Absolutely. Now, I'd read on your website, your last release of the album Stray Dogs was something that you'd worked on during the pandemic, and the music and the style of that record were influenced a lot by your sense of isolation and the kind of the unknown that we were all experiencing at the time. But now that we're on the other side of that with this new record, Almanac, what did you find yourself drawing on for inspiration while you were writing the new songs?
Yeah, so many of my old songs come from characters I meet while I'm on the road and when I'm less plugged in with my local community. And so this record definitely has a bigger sort of local flavor. A lot of the characters are distinctly from rural Manitoba, and I'm trying to write about them unapologetically, and I wanted the record to sound like Manitoba if that's possible, and our geography, and just try to really celebrate where I'm from and the sense of place that we're just trying to foster here.
Oh, I dig that, man. Now, another song off the record that really struck me was Spade.
Oh, you like that one? That's cool.
Oh, man, right from the jump, I was hooked on that guitar riff, too. It pulled me right in. I loved it.
There's no philosophy in the North Country, it's too cold to think that hard. Good politics, his neighbors doing favors, working out in the yard. You got time to stand around and think.
So, I mean, like you've been kind of touching on this. Your songs are telling these different stories about this cast of characters, which is just, it makes it such a pleasurable thing to listen to from the beginning to the end. But can you tell us more about the song Spade and the story that you're telling there with that song?
Yeah, so when I hired on at the farm, the cattle farm, I just come fresh off of a few years in university. I was studying philosophy at the time, and so I was really interested in big heady conversations. And so I was trying to write about the type of person that I met who was intellectually brilliant, but didn't really want to have time to have heady conversations when there was work that needed to happen. And I remember talking to one of the hired men at the farm. I think we were vaccinating cows or something. And I said, well, sometimes you have to call a spade, and I was trying to make a point about something politically we had a disagreement over. And he said, not on this ranch, boy. The only thing we call a spade here is a shovel, and that was it. I was like, that was a song instantly. And so that's where Spade comes from.
So here's the $1 million question for you, Del.
All right.
If you had to pick a favorite tune from the record, maybe it was the most fun to write, or maybe one that you just love to perform live, whatever it might be, what is your favorite song from the album Almanac?
Oh, great question. We've been playing all these songs for the last month on the road here, and for some reason, for me, I've been really enjoying playing the song called Flash in the Pan, and it's just a groovy song, and it's the one that I didn't think I was going to even be playing every night. It's kind of outside of the sort of the way my music usually sounds. It's got more of a groove to it, like I said. But for some reason, it's just really easy to believe those words every night. Every single night I play it, I feel completely in touch with that song. And it's another one of those songs that just celebrates what we're trying to do here with our garden and farm and everything, So I'm trying to make a life that's just sustainable in every way, not just a flash in the pan. And so I really like that one.
Dreams, they were never as good as they seem. I trade a little ambition for the right light passing through the trees.
So we know what your favorite song is to play now from the album, but let's flip the whole thing over and let's bring it back to the farm. What are you looking forward to growing the most this year at the farm in Manitoba?
Well, this is my 4th year. I started a pile of asparagus from seed, and it takes 3 years to establish before you can just cut it back as much as you want. And so this is our first year where we're going to get to harvest as much asparagus as we want. And I'm just really excited about that. And hopefully I'll get to catch the tail end of that when I get home.
Yeah, it is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love those things that take a few years of investment, that take that long to get there. There's something about that long game that is really exciting to me. And I'm excited to reap the fruits of that this year.
Del Barber, where can folks find you online and get their hands on a copy of your new album, Almanac?
You can order vinyl, even CDs, if people remember what those are, from my website, which is delbarber.com. But most people are streaming music now, and you can find it on any of the streaming services: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all of them. So check it out wherever suits you best. And if you want to shoot me a message on any of the socials, I love getting to know people. So don't be shy out there, and I love to hear from you. And any feedback, positive or negative, any tips on my garden or the farm, I'd love to hear those too. I'm an open book there, so come at me.
Groovy, man. I'm going to put all your links down in the show notes so people can find you.
Thank you so much. That was so fun.
And I'm going to play us out with one more song from the album. I think the closing track, On My Way Out the Door, seems like the perfect song to wrap things up on.
Nice.
Del, thanks again for being on the podcast, my friend. The new album Almanac from Del Barber is now available everywhere that you like to buy your music. That's a wrap, my friends. Thanks again for joining us. And remember, if you like what we're doing here, you can always subscribe to our Patreon. That link and many more is at seedsandweedspodcast.com. Thanks again to Del Barber. I'm your host, Bevan Cohen, and I'm on my way out the door.
You can stumble around all confused, all worried up by yesterday's news. You can claim a mountain of trouble in the palm of your hand. Hi, low, I hope I'm somewhere free of the whiners. Just don't see that we're all on our way out the door. On my way out the door, on my way out the door. Gotta know, darling, there ain't a whole lot more. I've been around a time or two. I'm gonna settle my scores on